Yvonne McKague Housser wasn't an outsider to the group of seven. Far from it. Not only was she asked by the Brotherhood to exhibit her art in 3 of their shows, 5 years after painting Silver Mine Cobalt, which I'm going to talk to you about today. She married its chief promoter, Fred Housser. He was the art critic who first documented the group of seven in his 1926 book, A Canadian Art Movement. With Silver Mine Cobalt, McKague Housser presents the subject of a Northern Ontario silver mining boomtown that, following her lead, would soon become the subject of group of seven members A.Y. Jackson and Franklin Carmichael. Yet her approach was decidedly different. Like the paintings of Jackson and Carmichael that you see on screen, McKague Housser's Silver Mine Cobalt reveals a tiny urban center located in the expansive wilderness of Northern Ontario. Unlike Jackson and Carmichael, however, Silver Mine Cobalt is not a landscape, but a cityscape. It is a portrait of the town, Cobalt, which was shoehorned into a 13 square kilometer area, tiny patch of land, which in 1911, amazingly, when it was at the peak of its production, provided roughly 1/8 of the world's silver. McKague Housser's Silver Mine Cobalt goes against the grain of the town's depictions by Jackson and Carmichael because, as we can see from this slide, the focus of the painting is more about its architecture and its people than the wilderness that surrounds them. From her papers, we know that McKague Housser was fascinated with the shapes of cobalt's mine shafts set against its silver sky, particularly at dusk or dawn, when, as she wrote, they appeared like a stage set. Although much celebrated during her life, by the late 20th century, most art historians would take no more than a superficial look at McKague Housser's work. And so her legacy and that of Silver Mine Cobalt soon became that she was a group of seven influenced artist. This notion, however, overlooks the fact that Silver Mine Cobalt is an independent vision of a mature artist who went against the grain of her male counterparts. After graduating from the Ontario College of Art, McKague Housser traveled through Europe. Her trip included classes at the Académie Ryerson in Paris, where she was taught by the symbolist painter Maurice Denis. Then, upon her return to Canada in 1922, she joined the faculty at the Ontario College of Art, where she began to teach and then exhibit with a group of seven members. Although McKague Housser never gave a specific date for her first visit to Cobalt, in the 1970s, she revealed in an interview that her arrival in the northern town preceded her male colleagues by almost a decade. Next slide, please. In Cobalt, McKague Housser found a modern urban landscape packed with buildings whose angles, textures, and shapes fed her appetite as a painter of industrialization. In light of this fact, and in consideration of McKague Housser's knowledge of international art trends, the abstract flat patterns that you see in Silver Mine Cobalt should be considered in the context of the American stylistic movement Precisionism, a term coined by the MoMA director Alfred H. Barr in 1927 to describe the work of artists including Georgia O'Keeffe, whose paintings, like the one on the right, East River from the 30th story of the Shelton Hotel, celebrated urban and industrial landscapes with even colors and geometric lines. Next slide, please. Another aspect of Silver Mine Cobalt that goes against the grain of Carmichael and Jackson's work is that it includes people. Although not obvious at first glance, in the bottom left of Silver Mine Cobalt, 3 miners set out to work. Against a shadowy background, they wear lights to guide their way. Illumination is a subject that McKague Housser returned to in a more pronounced way 1 year later. In Silvermine Evening, which you can see in the center image, the cityscape is packed with homes whose bright windows light up the canvas. The illumination in both of McKague Housser's cobalt scenes echoes the approach of O'Keeffe's New York Night with Moon. Light, as McKague Housser's symbolist teacher Maurice Denis taught her while she studied in Paris, is a metaphor for the disclosure of truth. The illuminated beams that project from the men in Silvermine Cobalt should also be considered in relation to McKague Housser's lifelong devotion to theosophy and its scriptures, in which light symbolizes a higher manifestation of being. From her writing, we know that McKague Housser saw cobalt as a place where mining people, quote, lead their own way. They went north because they liked it, and they had space. They're such individuals up there, end quote. Next slide, please. Looked at in this context, one might read Silvermine Cobalt as a valorization of the town's miners, as well as a bridge between industry and art. This is a subject that McKague Housser's husband addressed in his 1933 article for Gold magazine, written 2 years after she painted Silvermine Cobalt. Gold was a publication dedicated to mineral exploration and development, as told through words and pictures. With these facts in mind, I'm going to conclude with some remarks about how McKague Housser's art and legacy demands further attention. While Silvermine Cobalt is a painting fraught with complexity, particularly when viewed through the lens of contemporary environmentalism, the work is a unique depiction of early 21st century Ontario mining towns. McKague Housser and her art went against the grain to provide a window into exploring class, labor, and industrial realities, subjects largely overlooked by her male counterparts, their preference looking at an austere wilderness. With Silvermine Cobalt and her other modern landscapes, McKague Housser addressed the Canadian North in a novel way. And understood in this context, it is clear that McKague Housser was anything but a footnote to the group of 7. Thank you.